So if you have an opportunity to go to a cool Toronto tournament and you can afford to do that and it's not a pain in your ass, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you think I need to do this so that at 11, my kid has the best chance at being scouted or noticed, or it's just so irrelevant at 11, it doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter.
I'll start getting into some of these questions. So,
Sure.
So the way that I want to kind of approach this is, let me turn my phone off too. The way that I kind of want to approach the questions that, you know, I'm actually discussing with you, like as a, you know, guy that runs the academy or coach, whatever. I want to come from the perspective of, like, what should parents actually care about? Like, what is going to move the needle down the road if they want not even necessarily a successful hockey player or athlete, but like if they want to raise a successful human, and then maybe the successful athlete and hockey player is secondary, and then we could talk about also like vice versa. Like, what do you do if you legitimately want to have the best player on the team, if you want to see your kid playing triple, make it to juniors, make it to the O, or whatever, and then eventually maybe the show, like what are those steps? So I want to ask you the question, like, so I'll preface this by saying, can you break down the skills and strategies that make an actual successful hockey player from a young age? Like, what does U8 player, a U8, U9, say like anything under 10, what actually matters for that kid to be developing and focusing on? Or what should the parents focus on in order to help develop the player the most effectively that they can?
So the first preface for the answers to these questions is there is not an answer, because if there was an answer,
there's not one right answer.
There's not a study. There's not, like, no one is researching this. Like, so this is all just my opinions based on my experience.
And that's exactly I love that answer, or prefacing this by saying that, because that is also important, that you're actually not coming from your opinion necessarily. Well, you're coming from your experience. Your opinion is based off of your personal experience.
An informed opinion
of over a decade of coaching.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So to back up, like, I've been doing this. I started in a coaching role when I was about 16, and that was with young kids learning to skate in that kind of environment. And now it's been coming up, playing on teams, coaching teams, and in some kind of coaching role, whether it's on ice, off ice, nutrition development, classroom setting, whatever. So I've touched a lot of these different things. When it comes to the hockey development, if we have to be very specific about the age. So if we're saying 10 and under, in my opinion, and this is just from what I've seen, what I've heard.
Where do you break that up then? Like, what are the tranches of ages?
The line for me is always puberty. The line is always puberty. So
where do you see that? Like, I have an idea of what age would puberty, but what have you seen that's that line there? Like, what is that age?
I think it's that 13 to 15.
Okay.
That's when the transition happens.
Okay.
That's when it starts to happen. And so that's still not to say it's going to be one way or the other, because you can find the late story of the guy who was 17 and then all of a sudden got good out of nowhere, and vice versa. Like I said, there's all kinds of different ways.
Gotcha.
If I say generally speaking, for most cases, when you're under 13 years old, the most important thing is that your kid just likes to play, and you are seeing that they want to do things on their own.
Got it.
That is the number one thing. So if they are not doing things on their own, and you have to keep giving them the pat on the ass to go do something, then that's already a little bit of an indicator. Kids can change.
Got it.
Kids might, when they're 13, say, okay, I actually want to do this now, and now I'm going to pick it up. But regardless, that's kind of what you're looking for.
Interesting.
So if they seem to be self-driving, they want to do things on their own, even when they're young, that's the fun that they choose to participate in, then that is your number one.
Got it.
Because it doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter that they're doing XYZ skills thing, skating thing. It doesn't matter. Like, I have 9-year-olds that still drag their feet and go on to be great skaters. And I have beautiful skaters who hit puberty and grow 2 feet, and all of a sudden they're Bambi because they have to relearn their body proportions.
Interesting.
You know? Okay. So if we're specifying for under, let's say 10, I would even say under 13. That's my biggest thing.
Interesting.
So they have to be doing it. It can't be mom and dad. Now, there are signs that you can see. Like if your kid is scoring 47 goals in the first 10 games of the season, it's like, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But to your kind of greater point about what is this for, I think until the kid is into puberty now, your mindset as a parent should just be like, let the kid play, let him enjoy it, give him as much opportunity as we can afford, as we logistically can handle, as much as we enjoy, and then let them just play. And that means if they want to do the extra thing, then they can. If it fits in with your schedule and with your finances and whatever, then they can do that. There's no problem.
Interesting.
But if they aren't asking or they don't want to, then maybe that's an indicator.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you never encourage them.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you just let them pick and they're like, you're the boss, like you're still mom and dad. But if you say, hey, like, you have to pick something to do. Do you want to go play hockey or do you want to go play baseball?
Yeah.
What do they say?
Yeah.
And for a lot of kids, sometimes it'll be both. Sometimes it'll be, I want to play baseball today, then I want to play. So you can't be that serious is my point, I guess. And I find with the younger kids, it's almost like it's more serious. It gets more serious. People are more, right? That's what I see. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people, they can't zoom out and see how big the hockey landscape actually is. It's like when you're 16 and you enter the OHL draft, for example, you've just jumped into a way bigger pool. Gotcha. So if you're the best kid in Windsor, Essex County for us, when you jump up and now you're dealing with all of Ontario, that's way bigger.
Yeah.
When you take the next step, it's all of Canada, that's way bigger. The whole world, that's way bigger. And I don't think people understand how vast that is, because you can get caught up in your little world thinking that all these things are super significant, only to realize as soon as that 16-year-old age, it happens every year. It just, kids drop like flies right after the draft. That's what happens, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting, man. I do see that. I do see that quite a bit, being involved in it, where, man, do people take it serious at like even like U8, U9, and it's unbelievable. And then you go up to the GTA, and then like the pool
mayhem.
Of play, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's actually unbelievable.
It is.
You know, and then you're just getting slaughtered.
And
just
now
slaughtered.
That doesn't mean don't care.
Yeah.
That's also like a lot of times. Like I said, I do this thing where I'm always like kind of on both sides of every question, because there isn't a clear answer, and there's a balance. Like I remember reading a book, Jocko Willink's a guy I like. I don't know if you know Jocko. Yep. So he wrote Dichotomy of Leadership, and it's kind of like the balance of being a leader. You kind of have to play both sides. So for you, I mean, you would know this. You run a company. You can't be the dictator all the time. Like sometimes you have to listen to the guy that's below you or whatever, right? And that kind of thing happens as a parent. It's the same thing. Everything is the same. It's the same kind of principles, you know. So as mom and dad, you don't want to not care. So if you have an opportunity to go to a cool Toronto tournament and you can afford to do that, and it's not a pain in your ass, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you think I need to do this so that at 11, my kid has the best chance at being scouted or noticed, or it's just so irrelevant at 11. It doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter, you know?
That's so interesting. So let's take this from a different perspective. So you're 9 years old. Your kids lighten up the local scene. And the kid likes it, you know, at the, you know, on his own time, he's playing mini sticks. He's maybe shooting pucks or balls outside at a net on the driveway, whatever. What skills at that age would you say are the most important fundamentally to develop and encourage?
Yeah, I think in today's game, value is always going to be on skating first.
So become a good skater.
Yeah, you want to become a good skater, but a lot of times you don't have that much control over that. Okay. So I find like it's funny because we have this skating treadmill that we use, and sometimes I'll have a 7-year-old jump on, and they're just a beautiful skater. Like, tell me who taught them that, right?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Whereas I'll get the other 7-year-old who doesn't understand how to bend his knees at all.
Yeah.
Or they can't use their hips at all. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm tentative even saying that, because it's like some kids will just get it and some won't. So if your kid's not a great skater, doesn't mean that it's over and they can't do it if they're not a good skater when they're 9, you know? So it's one of those tricky kind of questions, is you have to focus on something. And to me, I say, do a little bit of everything.
Gotcha.
Like, they need to work on their skating. They need to work on their stick handling. They need to work on their shooting. They need to work on their passing. All that stuff they need to work on.
Gotcha.
And I think at that age, it should just be that. It should be the fundamental skills. Like I have people reach out to me sometimes about their 10-year-old. It's like they lack hockey IQ. And it's like, well, maybe they do, but maybe they're also 10 and they're thinking about what they did at school today.
Yeah.
They're just not that serious fundamentally.
Gotcha. I see.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's why I always start with like foundational things. And then as kids start to get older, as the parent, a good skill, and you can even do this when they're younger. It doesn't have to be when they're older, but is just to ask questions. Like when they're playing the game and they come out, instead of telling them, hey, you should have done this, this, and this. It's like, how come you did this? Like, what were you thinking in this situation? And let them think about what they're doing.
Interesting.
And I think that is the best way for kids to learn is you have to let them lead and let them think. And even if you ask them leading questions, as parents do, that's okay. But make them think about the things that they're doing. And I find this all the time with kids at the academy. Young kids will come to me. And I was just asking a kid the other day, his teammates were saying, oh, he had a great game. And I'm like, oh, like, why'd you have a great game? And his answer is, I don't know. And I'm like, that's not a good answer.
Yeah.
That's not a good answer.
Yeah, think about what you did.
They've never been forced to think. They're not
Gotcha.
being forced to think. And I think that's where the learning happens, you know, so they can go to their camps and do their skills and get their foundations, learn their fundamentals. And then as parents, you can ask questions.
Gotcha.
Ask them questions, and that's where they'll start to learn the game when they're young like that, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting, man. Yeah, I'll be up in the stands and I hear a lot of parents talking about or like screaming or whatever, and it's like them screaming about telling the kids on the ice to make these plays, and I'm just like, man, you guys they're not going to do that.
Right.
They're 9. They don't understand what you're even saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's too complicated, you know, and you know, I find from a perspective of, you know, I've loosely helped because coaching isn't the right word, to be honest with you. But I've always noticed, like, when a kid's just playing their heart out there and they're just like everywhere, it moves the needle for them.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, even if they're sloppy, if they're just covering more ground,
Yeah.
it helps.
Yeah, and
you know?
it's okay. And
Yeah.
this is what I have been saying of late about parents. This is something I've come to realize because it's happened to me. I remember at the start of this season, or I guess start of this year, when we started with the academy, I do these nutrition talks with the kids. And even with the high school kids, when I'm explaining things to them, I will just take for granted that they know words that I'm using. They understand vocabulary. So I'll say like something like carbohydrate. I think everyone knows what that means. They don't know what it means. They've never heard this word before. And these are high school kids.
Oh, wow.
And so what I think as adults we can do is we impose our mature mind on the youth, and we think that they maybe know more than they do, or they understand more than they do.
Yeah.
And they really don't.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me where I'll say a term to them. Nutrition is an easy example because there's so many terms you can use.
Yeah.
And I'll ask them, do you know what this means? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And a bunch of them will put their hand up, and then I'll ask them, can you explain what this means? And then nobody can explain what the word means. So they don't really understand. So even on the ice, if you say, hey, you have to make sure you forecheck.
Yeah.
What if a 10-year-old doesn't know what forecheck means?
Yeah.
You know, or what if they get it means go after the puck, but they don't know that it means when it's in the corner or when you're the first person there, or
Yeah.
So we have to be clear about that kind of messaging as parents. And that's where the patience comes in as a coach and as a parent. Like, you can't expect too much.
Yeah.
Because they are just trying to figure it out. They don't even know the sentences you're saying, right?
Yeah. That's so interesting. I can't stop thinking about that one comment that I heard that one guy say to float it through the slot, and the kid was in the corner, and I'm like, buddy, like,
Yeah.
what are you even talking about? You know,
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about that. It was the funniest comment I ever heard at a game. Float it through the slot.
Yeah.
The kid can't even shoot, let alone float it.
Yeah.